In this introductory Photoshop session, we're going to talk about basic image adjustments that are found here under Image Adjustments in the drop-down menu. We'll go over auto levels and what the levels tool does. We're going to take an old photograph and introduce you to image restoration by increasing the saturation, using the levels tool, and adjusting the overall hue tonality to remove yellowing that is often found in older photographs. So let's get started. Here's an older photograph from December of 1973, and you can see that the image overall is very washed out. It's missing a lot of highs and lows, and color saturation is diminished. And this is pretty typical of older photos. The other thing to notice is that overall the image not only has faded, but has started yellowing around the edges. And all of those things we can adjust in Photoshop using our scan. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give Photoshop the benefit of a doubt and let it determine what my levels should be. Levels in an image, it's the tool that seeks to restore the intensity and the contrast, or the original contrast of the image. By looking at the differences in the highs and lows on the image, it tries or attempts to restore an image back to its original brilliance. So under Image Adjustments, I'm going to choose Levels, and I'm just going to click on Auto and let Photoshop do the magic. And it really is a smart tool. Notice how already we have increased intensity and contrast, and a lot of the color has gotten back into the image. Still, we could increase the saturation even more and try to bump up some of the colors in the image. To do that, I can find under Image Adjustments and Hue and Saturation. I'm going to have the master, or the overall amount of saturation for the image, selected. And notice also that I have preview checked. So as I make changes to the image, I can actually see what's happening. Now, of course, I'm not going to bump up the saturation this much because it just looks garish and it's just not even close. But I can bump up the saturation a little bit and bring back a little bit more of the color into the image as it may have originally looked. And I'll hit OK. The next thing that I'm probably going to need to do is I'm going to attempt to remove the yellowing that is found in the image overall. And you can do that again under Image, Adjustments, Hue, and Saturation. This time, instead of adjusting for the master or the overall color tonality of the image, I'm going to choose the yellows. And I'm going to attempt to pare down the yellowing of the image. I can try to adjust the lightness of the yellows in the image. I could add a little bluing to the image. Sometimes that can compensate for too much yellow in the image, and I can bring down the saturation of the image. Now, as I'm making these adjustments, I can, I can play with them a little bit, but it would take a little bit of noodling, and it does take some time. So you just work with these adjustments with the preview button selected, and you can see how things are going on the image as you make these changes. Ultimately, the changes that we have made by updating the levels from the original imaging, adjusting the saturation, pumping up the colors, and then removing the yellowing from the image results in an image what is probably a little closer to the original image that was taken in the winter of '73. And this concludes your introduction to image restoration using image adjustments and some of the items in the drop-down menu.